everyone. Today's video is going to be my July palette roundup where I am ranking all of the palettes that I used in the last month based off of how much I have used them. I also show you all the palettes, all the looks, and it is one of your guys' favorite videos of mine to watch, and it is one of my favorite ones to film. I have been doing these ever since the beginning of my channel, and I do have an entire playlist of all my palette roundups from the very beginning, although I do not recommend you watch the ones near the beginning. They are very cringy, and I did not know how to edit at the time. This was all a learning process, and I did not know how to put pictures up on the screen when I first started, and now I do it all the time. I do want to state that I wear makeup about like 6 days a week, 6 to 7 days a week. I do my makeup pretty much most days. In the month of July, I have worn makeup 29 days. I've used 18 different palettes, 4 of which are new, 4 of which were decluttered to me from 2 different friends. So I want to say thank you to those 2 friends, and we'll get into those palettes when we get there. But I want to showcase first the 7 palettes that got used one time. The first palette that got used one time was actually my singles palette here. It is a Shop Miss A palette with a bunch of singles, and I think I should move over so I can put up pictures on the screen. I came up with a more community event singles Saturday, and I did a look for my video. That was my dog. I did a look for the video on YouTube, but I did a separate look on Reels and a short for Instagram. So I used my singles palette for that. This is my cooler toned purpley pinky palette. So the look I created was very cool toned. The look I created was also quite pink. Also, we're going to start getting like really bad weather. So I think maybe I should brighten up my video here, because I was like, I feel like it's a little dark, but we're going to start getting storms. So if you hear any weird noises or anything, that's going to be what that is. But this is all my cool toned singles. I have them separated, and this is where all my pinks and purples live. So I did a really pretty look with this one, and I did that for my IG singles Saturday. I will leave my Instagram link down below. I have a highlight all about singles Saturday, and I also did a video, which we'll get into, of my singles Saturday. Next palette I used one time was the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde. I feel like I need to take this out every once in a while to get some good use on it, because I feel like I don't give it the love that I think it deserves anymore. It is years old. I decided to do a pretty peachy look with this, and someone told me, I think on Instagram, how they were surprised it came from this palette. You do have 2 pretty warm shades. So you have Utopia here, which is like an orange, and that's mainly where this look is coming from. And then you have this shade here, which is called Karma, which is pretty much deepening this look. And I don't remember what shade I put all over the lid, but I felt like I just needed to use it. This is also pretty reflective packaging, so it's hard to show. If you have the Huda Mercury Retrograde, I highly recommend you take it out. It's a beautiful palette. I need to use this a lot more often. The next palette is was my favorite palette of 2024, and I'll leave my ranking all of my 2024 palettes down below. This one ranked number 1, the Diveroon Gloomy Gardens. I definitely needed to use this one, and I need to use it more often, and that goes for like pretty much every palette in my collection. But the look I did is a classic K look. I know I'm wearing blue today, and I do love all sorts of color, but my go-to color is pink. So of course I used these 2 shades right here, the purpley colors, the pinky colors, and this is like a go-to look for me. Like, I really enjoy this look, and I still really enjoy this palette. I'm going to show 2 different palettes for this look. It was my 4th of July look. I did do an entire short with this. I don't know if I can put shorts down below, so I am going to be giving you the photos. If I have done an entire video dedicated to it, I don't include the photo, but I don't think I can put shorts down below. I don't really do many shorts. I've been starting to do them a little bit more often, so if I film it for Reels, I put it on as shorts as well. This very intense 4th of July look was done using the Beauty Bay Brights palette, also the Lost in Wonderland. I feel like the Beauty Bay Brights is such a good staple palette of how many shades you have in here, but I felt like for this specific look I was lacking some things, which is why I pulled out my Lost in Wonderland palette from ColourPop. Most of, I think all of the use I've gotten from this palette this year was because these are magnetic and I put them in BYOPs, but I believe I used the light blue here to blend out my blues, and then I used the white glittery shade all over the lid. I sometimes struggle with this palette just because of how light it all is. I kind of struggle making a look with this palette and this palette only, but I do really enjoy this palette, especially for BYOPs. The last look, my 4th of July look, and this look, I felt like that was like forever ago that I did these looks. Like, I felt like July was so long, but it was so short at the same time. I don't really understand how I felt throughout the month of July, but this look was, I think, my favorite look I've done in the entire month, and I used the Secret Garden palette from Bella Vitae Bar, and let me tell you, I love and adore this palette. I utilized the neutrals, and then this is a stunning inner corner. If you have never used this sort of shade or any sort of like really bright pastel color in the inner corner, that's kind of my favorite way to use them. I loved and adored this look. This entire palette is really great, and I love that I can take the shades out and put them in BYOPs when I want to. This is one of my favorite looks I have done in the entire month. I love it so much. This here is the last palette that I used one time. It is the Ace Beauté Oceanic palette. This one, I felt like I only used it like once or twice when I first got it, and I like never touched it again. I got this decluttered from a friend. This is a blue and green lover's dream. It looks like I may have used it today, but I do have another blue palette in the lineup. This is a gorgeous palette. I haven't had any issues with these colors, and the look that I did was very light blue, really ethereal looking. I really want to use this green shade to really make that stand out. This is also one of those looks I'm like, I feel like it was forever ago when I did this. Like, I really don't know what was happening in July. I really do not know. Next little stack of palettes, I used 7 palettes 2 times within the last month. And I think 3 of the 4 new palettes are in this little lineup. I did get the new palettes kind of like the middle to end of the month. I didn't get to use them as often as I probably would have liked to. So a friend of mine, DW, sent me 3 different palettes. I did do a friend mail video where I showed them all. So I used the Flower Moon palette from Ensley Rain. And if you guys did not see that video, she was swatching out the shades and she realized that a lot of the shimmers were like duplicates of each other. And so she felt it wasn't necessary to keep the entire palette in her collection. So she took out half the shimmers, which is perfectly okay with me. She took out half the shimmers to put in her singles, and she cared less about the mattes, so she kept them in the palette for me, asked me if I wanted it. So many people like loved and raved about Ensley Rain before they got themselves into trouble, and I just really wanted to know what all the hype was about. These shimmers are very unique. Like this shade Bliss here, it's like weirdly chunky, and I feel like one wrong move and it's like going to go everywhere. It's very chunky, but it looks really pretty once you get it like on a swatch or something. Like, I think these shimmers are just a little too special for me. Like, and it looks like a chunky, I don't know if you can tell, but it looks a little chunky in the swatch, and then like when you don't see it in direct light, it looks a little patchy. Like, I don't really know how to explain these shimmers. Like, I really didn't know what to expect. I was expecting something, I guess, similar to like Fantasy Cosmetica's formula. That's the vibe I was getting from when I was hearing people talk about. But like that shade especially is that sort of texture. But like this other one, Flower Moon, like the one that's named after the palette, Like this one is very creamy and I feel like it doesn't have that like chunky look to it. Do you see the difference between the two of those? It's not chunky and I feel like the pigments are a lot more scattered. Like it doesn't look patchy, and I don't know, I feel like the shimmers, I think they're just a little too special for my liking. I don't remember having issues with the mattes at all, like in terms of blending. I felt like a lot of people said a lot of good things about the Ensley Ray matte formula. I don't think I had any issues. I don't remember having any issues, but this first look, shocker, a pink look. I did use another palette every time I use this palette. I don't know why. I used one of these two shimmers, that's for sure. Then I also did a really pretty green look, which I did use this really chunky shade, and I used another palette with this look as well. But I used the greens and I really liked this look. I like the tones of greens of this look. They're a little bit more grungy, but it's still a really bright green look. I'm glad that DW decided to declutter it to me, and I'm eternally grateful. But those were the only two looks I did with this palette in the month of July. My friend Steph, still Steph, I'll leave her and DW link down below. They too, the two of them are like my besties, my ride or dies in this community. I love and adore both of them so much. I talk to both of them daily and I love and adore them so much. A while ago, Steph asked me if I wanted the Winter Wonderland palette, and of course I said yes. Really love this palette, like the colors. You guys know I love pinks, I love purples, I love blues. This is missing pinks, but we have plenty of blues and we do have purples. So actually the second look, since this is the last day of July and I'm filming this, this is the look that I did today. And I'm not going to show you the picture because you're going to watch it all throughout this video. But the main star of the show is this shade, like a really flippy sort of color. The first look I've done with this, my fiance really wanted me to use this shade. I don't know if you could tell or not, but it's like this really bright teal and then it goes into like a deep purple. So I used that for most of my lid, and I think I used this white shade to really light it out. I don't know if it was my favorite look of all time, but Steph really liked it. I much prefer today's look over the look I did yesterday. I can't wait to dip into these purples. But yeah, I did two looks with this palette. I literally got this like 3 days ago. So I did one look yesterday and my second look today. Really glad to have this palette. And today's look, actually, I used this entire row. Because I was wearing green today, I thought it would pull more green. It just looks more green in comparison to these other colors, but it's still pretty blue. Like, you would say this is all blue eyeshadow. I really enjoy the other Cosmic brushes, palettes that I own, and I can't wait to use this one more, especially in the winter time. Another DW declutter this month was my Gourmand Girls Haunted. I did do a summer ween look with this. It was purple, so I will leave that link down below. So that was look number one. Then look number two was the greens. DW is a sucker for greens. I knew I needed to do a green look. It felt fitting to do a green look with a summer ween sort of palette. So this is the green look I came up with. It's a really bright green, and I of course use this shade like all over the lid. So far I've really been liking the formula of this palette. Gourmand Girls seems to have a really nice formula in terms of mattes, in terms of shimmers. I feel like it's pretty on par and similar with some other indie brands that I own. I have never tried Gourmand Girls, so I really want to try the formula, and I was not disappointed in the two looks I've done with this palette. I have really wanted to get a lot more use out of my Too Faced Italian Spritz palette. This one, I believe I bought sometime in the summer of last year or 2 years ago. Really want to use this a lot more often. So I did use it twice this month. This first look was a really warm like crease, and then I put a deep blue all over the lid. I really enjoyed this look. I think it was sultry. I think it was pretty. You look at this palette and maybe you don't think of that sort of look. Really enjoyed that one. And then I also did, this is in combination with something else, but I used, I believe, I used these two shades. Or was it these two shades? I think it was these two shades. Because the palette I used it with does not have something this dark. Anyway, I used it a second time and it made, of course, a pink look. I'm a sucker for pink looks. And if you have the Italian spritz, I highly recommend you bring it back out. Really enjoyed both looks. I did some really simple looks this past month. Sure, I do makeup every day, but I don't do this sort of makeup every day. So I needed to bring out my Lorac Pro. This is the Fairy Tale Forest. I love this palette. I've loved Lorac for a very long time. This is the palette here. It is super, super boring, but like that's what I like a lot of times. So this look here is a super simple, like a warmer, neutral eye. It's so simple. And of course I put a black wing with it. Really simple and easy look that I have done. And then even simpler, I have done this look. I think really all I have done is put this shade all over the lid and into the crease, and I used one of these two shades on the inner corner just to brighten it up a little bit. I love this palette for everyday staple looks. I pulled out my beloved Garden of Juvia's palette twice. This look is back again, and I think I used one of the yellows. I definitely used one of the yellows, and I think I used a pink shade, or I maybe used this shade to blend out. I'm not entirely sure, but I did bring this palette out and used it with the Italian spritz. Really enjoyed this palette and this look. And then in my singles Saturday video, I pulled this out to pair with the singles that I picked out. So this look isn't going to be shown because I've done it in a video. When I was going through my videos that I've done this past month, I feel like I haven't done a lot of get ready with me's or like tutorial sort of videos, but that's also because it was the middle of the year. I had a lot of midway updates, my inventory, which I have taken all my photos. Of course, you saw my makeup inventory, but I still have not put that inventory photos on my Instagram. I really should do that in the month of August. The last palette that I used 2 times was my BH Mimosa palette. This look I did in combination with something else. I cannot remember, but this is the Mimosa palette. Again, another reflective packaging. This look I did use with something else. Again, pink. Pink is my favorite eyeshadow to wear. And then the second look I did a Throwback Thursday very, very recently using this, which, you know, brought in some yellows and oranges because mimosas have yellows and oranges in them. Really enjoyed this look. I'm starting to get out of breath because I want to film this and I'm really excited to film this, but like I don't want to potentially lose power in the middle of this video. So really enjoyed this palette. I need to bring it out more often. I do have 3 pans in here, which is really neato. It's very rare for me anymore to have a palette with 3 pans, and I think 2 of them happened this year, which is really exciting. So I really enjoyed this Mimosa palette, and it is the last palette that got used twice. I have 2 palettes that got used 3 times, one of which is the last gifted palette, and it is from DW. It is the Adept Heather Austin palette. This palette is missing a shade. You'll see the BYOP video very soon, but I did 3 different looks with this. The first look I did was really focusing on all these greens here. This is like a duochrome. It looks orange in this light, but then it shifts to green. It's a really weird shade, but I used this little quad here for this look. But the green look, it was sultry, it was grungy. I don't know if I like the tones of the mattes. The second look was a lot more neutral. Actually, I think this is the first look I've ever done with the palette. I definitely used the shimmer that goes in here. It's like a rusty reddish orange that is usually in this spot, and then I used these 2 mattes. Then the last one I did was I did use this matte here, and I topped a little bit of this all over the lid. I primarily used a satin from another palette to blend these out with. This formula. Out of the 3 that DW sent me, this is going to be my least favorite formula-wise. I've never tried Adept, and based off of my experience with this palette, I do not want to be purchasing any palettes here on out. Well, this is the reason why I wanted this palette, is to try the formula. Will I even want to purchase a palette from them? I know they have improved formulas. Is it for the better? Is it for the worse? Like, people used to love Adept when it was this formula, and I really don't understand the hype with this formula. The mattes are very hard to blend, especially together. Like, when I wanted to blend these two out, they blended very difficult together. But when I brought in, you're gonna see, when I brought in my Nomad palette and I used the mattes and the satins out of here, then these mattes were fine. Like this look you have on the screen now, I have a pink shade from the Nomad palette, and then I blended it out with this one to deepen out my crease. It blended just fine, but when I'm blending the two together, they just like don't want to go together. It's a weird thing. I mean, the shimmers of course are pretty, then I'm gonna treat this like an all shimmer palette, and that's not right. I'm gonna have to play with this a lot more. So I did use this 3 times. I feel like I'm still on the fence with this palette. I'm not very impressed with it so far, especially with the mattes. I mean, the shimmers are really pretty, but I haven't used all the shimmers either. So I've only used a handful of them. We'll have to see my thoughts going forward. The last palette that I used 3 times was my Simply Posh Coastal palette. Again, you're gonna see a missing shade. A BYOP is coming soon. I did a 3 looks 1 palette with this. I will leave that linked down below. I did 3 totally different looks, so if you have this palette or want to dupe the vibes or get some sort of inspiration for summer, that video is linked down below. It is, I think, 3 speed tutorials and then me talking about the palette, Simply Posh in general, and all that. If you want to see those looks and see all that, this is going to be down below. I already talked about this, but my Nomad palette, Nomad and one other palette got used 4 times. So this is Nomad Tokyo. You're gonna see this more often because I got rolled in to my one project for No Pan Left Behind, and I did not quite reach it. So you're gonna see it again in August. This is what the palette looks like. I really enjoyed this palette. I already talked about this look. I did use this gray. This is the gray that's like all over the front part of my lid. And then I use this pink shade to blend things out. This next look, I heavily use this purple, and then I use these 2 shimmers. I loved this look. It looked so fairy-like and ethereal and pretty. I pulled this out with Ensley Rain. Again, I don't really remember what I used out of this palette. Maybe this one, the black. I have no clue. I did use this with Ensley Rain though. I used it with both Ensley Rain looks because with that green look here, I used this all over the inner corner. I felt like I needed something to brighten it all up. But that was with this palette. It was more of a companion. There was that one look where I used this and this only, but yeah, this is a good one, and very sad it's discontinued. The last and final palette, this palette got used 4 times. I was like obsessed with this palette throughout this last month. It is the ColourPop Cabana Club. It is so underrated, and I definitely needed to give it more love. So we did 4 different looks with this palette, and this is the color story. It is screaming summertime, and I really love and enjoy this palette. What I didn't do with this palette is a straight and simple neutral look with just these 2 shades. Maybe this in the outer corner. I usually do that sort of look with this palette as well. But this first look, I am mixing in, I believe it was these 2 shimmers. I mixed those 2 and had them all over the lid. A little bit of a pinky purple vibe on the crease. Loved this look. I really enjoyed this one as well. I used my new About Face cream eyeshadow where that is the main focus, but I used some of these to like deepen it up. But most of the color here is from that like single cream eyeshadow that I got in my Ulta haul. So I'll leave my Ulta haul link down below, but I used that and the blue eyeliner. I used the blue eyeliner for that look, and then I topped it off with this blue. So, you know, I made it a little bit more intense. Oh, I must have used this with that other palette, the Mimosa. I don't remember the shades. It's been so long. I feel like July was a million years. But I did with this pinky peachy look, I did utilize this. And then the last look I did was, I think, everybody's favorite look this month. I used these really warm shades in the crease, and then I put this bright blue all over the lid. I don't remember the video that I filmed with this look. I have a feeling it was a salty video, which I feel like I've been filming more of those recently. And you literally just saw one like the last video. I feel like I've been salty about many things. But this look was beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. I overall really love the Cabana Club, and I would expect to see it in August, but I don't make any promises. But I really love and enjoy this palette, and that was all the palettes and all of the looks that I have done this past month. So we getting our book out here. Palette roundup numbers. I used 7 palettes 1 time, 7 palettes 2 times, 2 palettes 3 times, and then 2 palettes 4 times. I'm really impressed with the whole mix of everything. I feel like I have not been doing a lot of get ready with me videos. That should be changing in the month of August. I would really like to do a lot more talking, sort of get ready with me sort of videos. I wore makeup 29 days in the month of July. I used 18 different palettes, and 4 of them were new. The new ones were the Adept Heather Austin, the Gourmand Girls Haunted, and the Ensley Rain Flower Moon. They came from DW. And then the Cosmic Brushes, or Cosmic Beauty, the Winter Wonderland, was from Steph. I love and appreciate those ladies so much. Thank you for those palettes. I will get so much love and joy out of them comparison to all my other palettes. I feel like I love all of my palettes so much. If you enjoy this type of content, again, palette roundup playlist is linked down below. If you enjoy this sort of content or myself, please make sure you subscribe, like the video, share with a friend, comment down below what was your favorite look I've done in the last month. I feel like everyone has a different answer, and I really like to see the answers, and I really like to comment back on you guys. When I get a lot of comments, I feel like I succeeded in the video, because I get to communicate and interact with you guys. I love and appreciate you guys so much. Do all the YouTube things, and I shall see you guys next time.